All right, welcome back. We are on Unreal Engine Workshop in winter 2026 at Georgian, and where we last left off, we were building up some blueprints. Hopefully you guys had a good lunch. But I wanted to show you a AAA game because this is where we would hope our students will go for in the future. This is kind of like aspirational. So here's a game where we have a character just like you would in our Unreal Engine. In this case, now you can see there's a lot of stuff going on in this scene, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on in here in general. Level design is what we see here, right? So the way your architecture of buildings and so on, you can see that this what this is looking like. You see a weather system that you're seeing here. What you're also seeing is character design, where you can see the character again is not a static mesh but a skeletal mesh with a bunch of textures and layers. So they have things like armor and weapons where you can swap them out, right? You can do other kinds of things with them. And all these kinds of things are the things that we want our students eventually to get towards, right? But we start with something as simple as what I've been showing you today, which is I have a character, I want to do an interaction. This character here can interact with the game world. So they can go and do things like open doors and interact with non-playing characters, like for example, this ghost down here. Notice that when I come closer, let's look at that for a second. I come close, you can see that thing comes up in screen space that says talk, right? And it's basically telling me the key that I have to press to talk with the character. Well, this is what we want to do in the second half of our course today, which is I want to create an interaction with the door. When I come close enough to the door or an object, I want to be able to interact. So how do we do this? How do we know when we're close enough? We have something called some kind of overlap, some kind of volume that we use, and as we come close, both of the character and the door might have some kind of overlap volume or geometry, and when it overlaps with our character, we know we're close enough, right? That's what we're doing. This is kind of what's happening here, right? So I'm just going to get out of this, and then we'll begin. But I wanted to show you this because again, what we're hoping is that our students are going to work for a AAA studio in the future. It's going to take time for them to get there. They have to build up their capabilities with things like Unreal Engine. So what I want to do in this second half, so now that you've had your lunch, that's nice. I want to talk about fundamentals part 2, and I want to start with the third-person perspective character. All right. So this third-person perspective character, as I said before we went on break, is full of stuff. We talked about just to remind you, we talked about the inheritance that we have here, almost like an infrastructure or a hierarchy of blueprints we can use, all right? So here are the hierarchy of blueprints that we said. Actor is the lowest level, pawn, and then character, right? So up until now, we've made an actor. I want to make another actor. And this actor I want to make is a door, right? The door actor will have some kind of visual representation. So that's the static mesh. Then what I want to do is the same thing we've done so far with the timeline. Instead of bouncing the door up and down, I want to, when I'm interacting with the door, I want it to swing from 0 degrees to 90 degrees, right? And when I touch it again, I want it to go from 90 degrees back to 0 degrees. We could use 2 timelines, or we could use 1 timeline with a reverse execution pin, which I don't know if you saw that, but it exists on the timeline. But we also want to make it so that when we create this, this door, we want some kind of collision volume. By the way, games, if you're going to make a game, here's the things you need. Some kind of randomness to a game, right? And you need some way of colliding with other objects, some kind of overlap volume. When I say overlap volume, I mean like a sphere or a cube or something else. It's not visible to you, but it creates almost like this invisible volume that you're using, right? Call it a trigger volume or whatever. And when 2 objects intersect, these 2 volumes, right? Our Unreal Engine does all the math. By the way, there's been courses where we do all the math manually. Wallace has done that, I've done that, where we actually create our math library, collisions between 2 volumes and stuff like that, where we detect the collision. Once we have collision detection, randomness, and a character, we've got a game. Think about it, right? Any game you've ever played has those things. Sound also is very important. All right, so we want to do this, and what I want to start with understanding is this input system. All right, so the way we get input for the character itself, right? If you go and look inside of the third person folder, inside the input folder, there are two other objects. One is an actions folder and the other one is an input mapping context, IMC, okay? I want to go one level lower into the actions folder, and you can see that there are 3 input actions that have been created. So again, I'm inside the third person folder, inside of the input folder, inside of the actions folder, right? And inside that folder, you see these 3 input actions. Now, every game engine, including Unity, has some way of getting input from the user, right? Here, Unreal Engine uses an abstract way of getting input. First, we define the action, right? And there's different kinds of actions that you could have. For example, if I'm using a gamepad like this one, right? Then I might have an input for a button. A button might be, I've pressed it or I haven't pressed it. It's either on or off, right? So that could be a Boolean, true, false, kind of variable that I'm keeping track of. Or I could use one of these sticks. These sticks use an axis, right? Which means a 2D axis. Up, down, left, and right is an axis. That could be another type of input, right? This is actually a vector, 2 vectors, right? This is what we're using here, right? X, Y, and Z. So that's something we can use. So that's another input. If I'm using a button on a keyboard, again, it would be a Boolean action. I'm either pressing it or not pressing it, right? There's also one more action you can do with a keyboard. I'm continuously pressing a button. I'm listening for input while I'm continuously pressing, or I only want a single press. For example, a jump. If I was gonna play the game, a good example of this, right? If I'm playing the game here, and if I press the jump button, you know, I jump once. If I hold the jump button down, I don't keep jumping. Okay? So it's only a single action that I'm getting. But however, if I keep pressing the W button, I'm going to keep going in that direction, the direction where I'm looking with my camera. So that's a different kind of, it's still a true false action. I'm still pressing it. Either I'm pressing it or I'm not, but I'm allowing for continuous input. So there's continuous input and there's also discrete input. I've pressed it and I stop pressing it. I only can press it once, like the jump. Here's what we want. We want a different kind of input eventually where, when we're interacting, we press a button. Let's use the E button, which is very common in games. E is the interact button. And when I press the E button, if I'm close enough to the thing I want to interact with, it's going to respond. Okay? That's what I want to do. Now, this is way more complex logic than I would handle in a first semester course within the same day. All right? So typically what we do is, this would probably be like 3-4 weeks in, 5 weeks in, you know, kind of thing. Why? Because it would, you know, it would step them through the system and we'd be much slower. But you guys are advanced because you guys are our teachers, so we're going to make you, we're going to push you a little bit today. All right? So we want input. And I'm just going to go back to this. I want to take a look at the character to see where that input is. So if we look at the third person perspective character, and if I scroll into its event graph, again, I didn't write this. This has been written by Epic. This is a template that we've been given. So again, please open the BP underscore third person character. You can find this, again, in the third person blueprints folder. And if you double click this BP underscore third person character blueprint, it'll give you this. That's what I'm looking. So you can see a couple things here. One is this IA look event. IA look, remember we said there's a convention, input action. That's where IA comes from. Look, it's the look action, right? The look action in our case is associated with our mouse movement. When I move my mouse, my camera is moving in different directions. That's the look action. Notice that we have a triggered, kind of execution pin, but there are other execution pins you can use as well. For example, started and completed. If I want an action to be continuous, I'm going to use the triggered execution pin. If I want an action to be one time, I'm going to use the started execution pin and maybe the completed execution pin when it's done. If I want to be able to respond to both actions, right? And so on. Okay, so this is what it does. The input action, because I'm using a look action, remember I said it's an axis, I have 2 axes, the x-axis and the y-axis. The x-axis, so that's on my controller as an example, or the W key and the S key, that's one axis. The A key and the D key, that's another axis, right? It's just either positive or negative. If I'm going in a positive direction, up, then that is the W key, or the up arrow, on the controller, it's just, one of my sticks just go up. But it's one axis. It's still an axis on the controller, right? And if I'm going left and right, or if I'm using the A and the D keys, that's either positive for D or negative for A. D is on the right side, A is on the left side. D is a positive one, A is a negative one. Okay, so very, very simple way that they get input. And here's the move. Move is the same thing. If I right click, I can kind of pan through my blueprint, right? Just to remind you. And if I scroll in, you can see that input action move has a triggered action, so I can listen for it continuously, right? And if you read this just for a second, it says that this input action is triggered, and it gives you two values, X and Y. Notice that we're also using the control rotation. So wherever I'm looking, that's what that is. And I'm looking if I'm looking towards the right vector is towards the right, then I'm getting that when I'm moving left and right, I'm kind of moving towards the right depending on where I'm looking. So if I'm looking forward, so if I'm looking straight ahead, I want to move in this direction. That's what right means, okay? Whereas the other input is if I'm looking forward, forward is my positive direction, okay? One more time, I'll say that one more time so you get it. So if I'm looking forward, that's the control rotation. Right is my positive direction, right? Whereas if I'm looking forward and I'm going forward, forward is my positive direction. Back is my negative direction, all right? And that's how input happens. For us, we don't need to know these complex things. What we're going to do is we're going to have a Boolean action. Either I'm pressing on it, the E button, or I'm not. It's only going to happen once. So I'm only going to have a started. I'm not going to have a triggered. And all I care about is that I'm going to interact with the thing I'm interacting with. Okay, so that's what we're doing. But this is an example of how we initialize character movement. So if I was going to start a fresh, clean project with you, I would do all this stuff with you from scratch, right? We don't have time for that. So I would normally do that. That would be like a day just to do that, kind of thing. And talk about it and explain the details and how to do that and, whatever. But for us, we're going to use this character to move forward and back in our world. What I want to do now is I want to make a simple door blueprint. So let's do this. Just like we did before, I want you to do it on your own, okay? So this is the best learning that we're going to do, right? So I've put the PowerPoint slide up. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to make a new blueprint class, of type actor, right? And I want you to put it in a blueprints folder. It's already there. We already made a blueprints folder, so you don't have to make a new one. And I want you to name it BP_door. All right? So let's do that first. Go ahead, make a new blueprint, put it in the blueprints folder, of type actor, do that whole thing again so that we get those skills going. I can do it, but you watching me do it, it won't resonate. You have to do it yourself. So please do that now. Good?
Does it matter if it's a left or a right?
Click.
No. For the door name.
There is a door that's opening up this way or this way. There's already a door in there. Is that what you're asking?
Okay.
Like a door? You're talking about the door opening left or right?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna use one of their doors.
Yeah.
Make one?
No, we're going to use one of no, we're not going to make anything. The making stuff is going to take too long, right? Yeah. But yeah, making a door. I mean, if you have Blender, you go in Blender, make a doorknob, whatever, and then add some texture to it, and you're good to go. All right, so if you've done this, it looks like this. So I'll do it now. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go into my blueprints folder. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to go into blueprint class. I'm going to choose actor, and I'm going to call this BP_door. All right. Then I'm going to double-click to open it. It's going to look like this. Okay. I want you now that you've made your blueprint, I want you to add a static mesh, right? But before that, let's add a new thing called the box collision. All right. So a box collision is interesting. A box collision is a trigger volume. That's what we're going to add in. And the box collision itself is just going to create an area that we're going to be able to interact with, right? Think about our character overlapping with the box. It's an invisible box that's going to be drawn, right? We can see it, when we're making the game, but in real life, when you're playing the game, you won't see it. It'll be invisible. All right, so do this now. So again, what I did was do this first. I want to get you all caught up. Okay? So that you're good. And then once you're done that, add a box collision component, this one. A box collision component. And I want you to call this the interact box. That's what it is. All right, you can name them. So components are interesting because components allow us to expand our blueprint to add more functionality, right? So far we've talked about the static mesh component. Now this is another component, a box collision component, right? The box collision component is going to have some properties we're going to adjust. So I'll do the same thing. So I'll add in, and you can actually search for box collision. Right there it is. And you can see that it adds something that looks like this. I'm going to call this interact box. There it is, interact box. Compile and save. And once we have our interact box, this is one component that we need for the door, right? I've also given you a static mesh component. Let's do the static mesh next. So let's add a static mesh component, and we'll call this door mesh. Let's do that. So again, click on the add button. We'll add in a static mesh. Here's a static mesh component, and we'll call this door mesh. Make sure though that this door mesh is not a child of the interact box. Notice that there's a hierarchy here. Take a look. I don't want that. I want the door mesh to be a child of the default scene root, right? So the way to do that is if you kind of drag this thing, up here, right? Then you want to make it so that it looks like this. So there's two options. If I drag over, it says, do you want to make this the default scene root? Let me undo those changes. So it was like this, let's say by default, right? And if I drag my door mesh on top of the scene root, it's going to say, do you want to attach it or do I want to make this the root? I just want to attach it, okay? So now I have two components, a door mesh and an interact box. The door mesh has no mesh attached to it right now. There is a door, by the way, that we can attach to it. So let's take a look at this, and that'll be the next thing we do. So in static mesh, if you go here, and if you look for SM, static mesh door, you can see that there is a door here that we're going to add. Here's the door. Notice again, a couple of things, right? When we add the door, the pivot is in the bottom left corner, which means when we open the door, it's going to be coming from that bottom left corner. That's where the door is going to open. Again, all I've done, let's go back. I've added an interact box, which is just a collision volume, a collision box collision. I've added in a static mesh, which is the door mesh. And I've chosen under static mesh properties, I've chosen SM_door, right? That's what I've done. Are you with me? Yes?
Not sure. I don't think so.
Not there. Remember, so let's get rid of that one. When we get the box, get rid of one box. Right, I'll click on the static mesh. And then on the right, that's where you can do it. So SM_door. So now we have a door, and this door is not really positioned, well, the box isn't really positioned great for the door, and here are some more modifications I want you to do. So I want you to change the location property of the box and the box extents to this. Now what I mean by this, I'll leave this up in a second. What I mean by this, if we click on the interact box, on the right, there is a transform location. If I click on the interact box on the right, transform location, but there's also this box extent area right here. See this box extent, right? It's in the details panel when I clicked on the box. I want you to change those two things to these values, please. And if it's far for you to see there, you can also do that.
I don't have door. It doesn't have door. I don't have door option.
We're going to make it happen.
So where you're supposed to go? It's like
Static mesh. Oh, I know why. Because you didn't add in your. You probably didn't add in. Obviously, you're not going to do a more content. Can I see?
what are you going to do using a different door?
Yeah. So let's go. We're going to add in. Add feature change what I've done here is I've given you the values. Now, how did I find those values? Experimentation. I moved it around, and instead of you doing this with me, I'm just giving you the values, but realistically, you would move the box around and change the extents. What I've done here with these values is, if you look, I've changed the, the location to 45 and 100. So this is the first part, 45 and 100. And what this does is it moves this into place, right? And so that's put negative 45 would be nice, which is what it's supposed to be. So it kind of moves the box in place. And the next thing is I just scale the box extents to 40, 45, and 100. That's here. So 40, yep. Yes?
What if you just did that with scale? Would it do the same thing as box extent?
Yes, but sometimes the reason why I'm showing you the box extent is if you ever want to make your collision box, the root of your door, if you scale that, it also scales the door.
Okay.
Where box extent doesn't.
So I was doing that before anticipating, and
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, do box
Yeah.
extent.
So if you ever have that problem, that's why I'm showing you. There's two ways of scaling volume. One way, in this case, is the box extent. Other way, if you're using a spherical volume, is the sphere radius, right? And the other way, of course, is to change the scale. I don't recommend scale.
Okay, now in terms of the box extent,
Yeah.
like when we're actually making this interactive box,
Yeah.
where do we want to place the door in relation to it? Because you've given us values, but inevitably students are going to make their own doors
Yeah.
at some point.
So
how do we know where to place it?
So the box to me has got to be big enough so when your character moves into it, like you have to scale it with the character. So I've tested these values, so I would take the character, move it closer, and then check the box out and see what it looks like. And if the character can actually overlap with that box, it's big enough. And it has to be overlap from both sides, right? Otherwise, if you don't, then it won't be big enough. So this is the first thing. So the first thing we've done is create this thing. Now I want to add it just like this with no other code right now. I want to add this door to the level. All right. So going back to our little level we made, here's our level. I was going to make other levels, but you know what? I'm thinking not. I know we've done this. We've made our spinning cube and all that stuff. But what I want to do here instead is I want to. Now you guys didn't save. Did anyone save their level? Good. If you did, it's okay. But what I want to do here instead is I want to go File. Go do this with me, guys. File, and I want to open level, and I want to point to my, inside of third person, there are maps, and there is this third person map. Okay, that's what I want to point to. Basically, it's going to load your level again. That's all it's going to do. If you haven't saved it, it'll load the level again, and it'll look like, so where it says don't, like when you ask you like to save, don't save, please. Just say don't save. And what it'll do is it'll open up that initial level again, so it looks like this. Now, if you've saved, it won't show you this. It'll show you something else. Okay? Did you save? It doesn't matter, because here's what we're going to do. So challenge. I want you to use some of the architecture that's already in existence before we build put in our door, because we want to place our door in a specific spot, right? So here's what I want you to do. Inside of this level, if you've used the starter content, under starter content, the starter content folder, there's architecture, right? Architecture gives you some basic walls and those kind of things. You can pull in a door, right, as an example. Use the 400 by 300 door, this one, wall 400 by 300. And if you pull it in, okay, like this, you can see that I have this wall with a door space in it, okay? So here's that wall and a door space. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out, I'm going to rotate this thing so that that this door frame, if you will, is basically in front of this ramp. Okay, so it's going to be like this. This is what I want to do. I want to build out a little house where I put my door right in front of this ramp like this. Okay, this is just a door with a wall. Again, you can find these assets under starter content, architecture, and I'm looking at the wall underscore door underscore 400 by 300. 400 by 300 is 400 units wide by 300 units high. That's what it is. We also need a frame for the door. So the door we're going to put in, right, it also needs a frame. So here's the frame we can get. If I scroll down to props, So again, it's in the starter content. If I go to props and if I go to shapes, if I go to props, actually if I just go to props, the props folder, you can see that there's a door frame, SM_door frame. Do you see that? Let's pull that in. So the door frame looks like this. And what I want you to do is carefully move that door frame in so that the door frame sits kind of halfway inside like this. Now you may have to adjust the control of your snapping. Right now it's every 10. You may have to move it to every 5. You may have to take snapping off. Whatever you have to do, but move in your door frame so it looks like this. So it should be half kind of in the door frame itself, in the door. It shouldn't stick out like that. Let's just put it right in there, like this. Okay? So this is what your door frame should look like. Let me know when you're with me. Good? These are very simple things. So again, I'm doing this because you need a door frame for your door. Okay? Otherwise it won't fit properly. You'll see spaces around it. Okay? That's how these assets have been built. Now that you have a door frame around the door, let's place our door in there. And the way to do that is to go into your blueprints that you just made. Go into the door, BP_door blueprint that you have. And I want you to pull in that door so that it actually fits in right in here. Okay, so notice that the door handle for this door is on the left side for me. So I'm just going to zoom in here. By the way, if the camera zooms too fast, and if you want to slow the camera zooming down, here's how you do this. In the viewport, there is a little camera icon. Notice? Take a look, guys, please. Camera icon in the viewport. If you click onto that, you can change the speed of your camera so you can zoom in slower as opposed to really, really fast. So again, if I do that now, you can see that I have much more control over the zooming of my camera, and I can go right in there to see what my door is going to look like. I want to put this door right in the spot for my door frame, but again, notice that it's overlapping. I don't want to have this little, gap in here, so I'm going to change my snapping rules down to 5, and hopefully that will put the door in the right place, like so. Now, a couple things to note. Notice that the box is outside the door, and this is what we want. Let me show you what this is going to look like, by the way. I'm going to press play, and now you should be able to walk right through the door. Watch. Whoop, hello. So why can I walk right through the door like this?
Physics.
Okay, but what would stop me from moving through the wall? I can't move through the wall, but I can walk right through the door.
You'd have to turn on the physics, huh?
Well, the proper way to say this is there's no collision detection on the door at all. The mesh itself is there, it's visible, we can see it, but there's no collider at all. We need to add a collider to the door mesh. All right, and that's what we're going to do next. But first, help me out. Are you here with me yet? If you're not here, we can't move on. You good to go? I know, it takes a little bit of adjustment, right? Pretty simple. I want to add collision detection to the door, right? And the way I can do that is I have to change the door's mesh itself. So in order for us to see what the door mesh looks like, if I go back to the BP_door for a second, let's go there, BP_door. And if I click on the door mesh, you can see that there is a SM door static mesh that you used, right? Remember that one? There's these two little symbols here. Take a look. There's this one, a little arrow, and there's this one, which looks like browse to SM_door in content browser. Let's click that button. When you do, it takes you right to the door that's inside of our content. This is the door right here. Are you with me? Double click it. When you do, it'll pull up another editor, a new type of editor, which is a static mesh editor. Again, the camera might be too fast. You can always change the camera speed if you want to zoom around there again by looking at the door. This is what your door looks like, and it's specifically to look at what a static mesh looks like. It's almost like a preview, if you will, or a little, kind of a stage just for the door, so we can look at what it looks like, okay? Which is pretty cool. Here's what I want to do. I want to add a collider to this door, okay? And the easiest way to do this, right, is on the right side of your panel here, inside of the static mesh editor, right? If you scroll, if you're on the right side, so here's your door, right? Again, if I'm going to look at the static mesh door here, right? So here's your details panel, right, for your material slots and that kind of stuff. And if I scroll down, there is an area here that is, there's collision and stuff, right? So on the top, yeah? Are you with me? On the top, you can see that there's collisions, right? There's a collision, there is a collision menu item. And if you scroll down, you can actually click on auto convex collision. Please choose this, auto convex collision. And when you do, you want to click apply at the bottom right corner. So it's going to pull up a little other thing that looks like convex decomposition, and I want you to click apply. Now what this does is it draws a volume around your door which hugs the door, right? So it's pretty close. Notice that there's a green outline. Do you guys see that? That green outline is your collision area, right? Again, how I got that was I went to collision, I went to auto convex collision, and then I clicked apply at the bottom right corner, okay? And what this has done is it's added a collision volume that's around your door. You can't see this in the game. It's just a collision volume for your player. This collision volume will block all collisions, right? Now we need to apply this change so that all doors are like this, so just save, please. Okay, make sure you save the asset. And if I play the game again now, if I go back to play the game, let's see if you can still walk through the door, and you should not be able to. So I go here now, look, I can't walk through the door anymore, right? Doesn't allow me to, blocks me from walking. Are you with me? What was that?
My door disappeared.
It's weird?
Disappeared, yeah.
Disappeared? Shouldn't disappear. So does it block you when you're playing?
I was just got caught.
Sure.
Really nice box.
So the way you do this, so now I want you to try it. What you do is you click onto the door, and notice that snapping is pen, let's move to 5. Right? And what you can do is you just snap it to the right of it. Here you go. And then your camera's a little bit. It's not bad. You can see that if you look at it from different angles, that it's not quite as clear. You can put it in, so don't use that. I tried to so move the door frame into the wall.
It's pretty,
You know it's pretty gloss. Right? When I move the door frame in the wall, you know, and then when the door is
back on the rails. Yeah, exactly.
oh, I'm doing this first position.
I missed the whole part.
No problem. How is it?
That's exactly where it comes. So, we'll do some that are like, we'll be like, hey, I missed this thing. Okay, let's go over here.
This area.
All my classes.
So you're missing the back to your door. So you're missing that box over there? That, oh wait, okay, so you got
Oh, yeah.
two, so this static mesh here and your static mesh there? Let's get rid of this one. Let's get rid of that one. And this, so this box, you want to change it to the numbers to the door. You did. Okay, let's undo those changes. So box, if you want is 45. And 100. And you want to make the extents 40, 45.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
40, 100. Alright, now what you do is you take that scene, and then just drag and drop it into the So again, go back to your scene, and then go back into that blueprint you just made. You go back to the blueprint. And hope you didn't put it in. Okay, yeah. So you can always All right, so my friends, so now that we have our door in place, we're partway there, right? We've got the door. We just did this. What we want to do now is we want to create some interaction properties with the door itself. But eventually what we're going to try and do is we want to make it so that the character can't get through there by jumping in there or going through it. So let's take a break from programming for a second. And what I want you to do is, whatever your project looks like, let's pull in some additional architecture in here. And you want to look for a wall that's 400 by 300. It doesn't look like anything right now, but if you pull it in, it kind of looks like this, same size, right? And I want to rotate this wall. Just going to move it out here so you can see it. I want to rotate this wall so it's against this area here. So again, I'm going to rotate. You can press the rotate key. So there's my rotation by 90 degrees or negative 90, depends on how you looked at it. And I just want to move it into place next to the wall with the door and try and do your best. So when you're, sorry, it's a little bit too slow for me. Try and do your best so that when you're looking at the wall, it's snapped to the other wall so there's no gaps like this. All right, so all we're doing, you may have to reduce the snapping distance. I've reduced mine to 5. It looks pretty good. And you can see that there's a wall there now. What you can do is you can add walls just like this by duplicating. So again, if I Alt drag, I can duplicate my wall, right? And then I can rotate it so that way I can enclose my little space here so that my character can't get in unless they walk through the door. That's the idea. So just take the moment. It shouldn't take you that long now because you're reusing the skills we just learned. And just align everything so that way it's a proper corner on the wall over here. Like so. Okay? And keep doing that until you kind of enclose this area here, this little ramp area. And again, you can duplicate whatever you need to duplicate. If you have to get rid of, I found that in prep for this one, if I get rid of these corners over here, so if I get rid of this part, then it creates almost like for the most part, a rectangular room that I can use. So again, I'm just going to duplicate the stuff that I want to duplicate, and so that way I can kind of add this in the corners. And we're gonna make some adjustments in a second too. Again, all I want to do is create like a little house, like looks like this. And let's put another side to it. So I'm going to grab these two, and you can duplicate more than one. We've shown you how to do this before. Kind of pull that out, and then there we go. Maybe move it out one more space. This is kind of hugging a little bit too close for my liking. So what I'm going to do, let's take a look here. Yeah, it's probably good enough. What's happening?
No, she just kind of was lost off the map, and so I had to
Oh.
go back to the platform. Actually, that's a good tip. If you don't put anything in the outliner, it just zooms to that spot.
It does.
So if you have your door in the outliner, just double click on it, it'll take you right to there.
If you actually press in the outliner, if you press your door, if you press, so if the door is called SM_door, or if it's called BP_door in our case, in the outliner, and if you press F, it'll frame select.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to, that's another way of doing it. So all I'm doing is I'm just moving the architecture around just a little bit so that it doesn't interact with this stuff. See? That's pretty good. Okay. So I've got everything surrounded. So now there's no way for the character to get in there. So if I press play, now, there's no way that my character can get on that ramp. It's being blocked by all sides. It's a little house, so they have to use the door now. There's no choice around it. It's not just like a trial thing, right? So I can't get in there. My door is like shutting me out. All right, let's create. Do you guys create the box? Need time to do that? Like a little box around the area? Again, you can use your architecture. If you go to your starter content architecture folder, there are a bunch of walls and that kind of stuff. That's where you get them to make that area. Okay, so we have the building blocks. We have our little shape. You know, we've put it around our door. Maybe you've put it around your level. Your level might look a lot different than mine. It's okay. And then what we want to do is we want to create this interaction. Okay? So what's next steps? I want to do a little bit of programming, and I need to have a variable called interactor is close enough. Now you can call this variable anything you want. I'm making it so that whoever the interactor is, which is the character, is close enough to the interactable. I'm naming things, right? Interactable, that's the door, right? Interactor, the character. So if the interactor is close enough, if it's true, then I can open the door if I press the E button. If it's not close enough, then I can't open the door. So let's make a variable in the door blueprint. So again, going in the door blueprint is here. And then on the bottom, there's this area where we have a variables area. Are you with me? Can you see this? Variables area right here. In the door blueprint. Go in the door blueprint. I need everyone to do this. Otherwise, you're going to get lost. Right? So I want to click on this new variable, and let's call this new variable interactor is close enough. Interactor is close enough. It's a type Boolean, and let's check on this I. Let's turn this I on. So when we check the I on, what it actually does is it makes it so that if I want to look at this during play, I can see this variable. I don't know why these things are flashing, but we're just going to close this off. Okay, so interactor is close enough is what I did, and it's in the door. Compile and save, please. When you do so, you can see it comes up. If I'm clicking on the interactor is close enough variable, on the right, you can see it comes up and it's unchecked, which means this is going to keep track, the door is going to keep track when the character is close enough. So the character is not keeping track, the door is keeping track. It's holding the data whether something is close enough to it. Okay? Because it could be other characters, it could be anybody, right? By the way, I want to also mention this. There's many ways to write this. There's many ways to approach this problem, like tons of different ways, right? I'm choosing a way that is probably easier, at least in the beginning. So after you compile and save, we got the variable. The next thing I want you to do is in the event graph, let's build this. Okay, let's do this new thing. So got back into the event graph. Notice that I'm using a new custom event. Let's get rid of all of this in the event graph for the door. So the door doesn't have any of that stuff anymore. So the event graph should be completely empty. I've just deleted everything. Okay, so again, I had this, and I just highlighted everything and deleted it. You can do this. You don't have to keep all the default nodes. Those are just there to help you build something, okay? I want to make something new. I want to make a custom event. my own event. Instead of it being begin play or tick, let's make our own custom event. And the way to do this is you're going to right click and you're going to add in add custom event. Add custom event. You can name this event interact. So this is the interact event. I'm going to interact with the door. Okay, that's what this interact event is. Now here's what I want to do. I want to add a timeline. Let's add that timeline again. So add a new timeline, add timeline. This timeline is going to be, kind of, open door. We'll call it open door. I think that's what I called it, yes. And the timeline, remember how the timeline works. Let's double click on the timeline. We already know about timelines. Let's add a float track, just like we've done before, and let's reduce the length of time. Instead of 5 seconds for the door to open, that's way too long. Let's reduce this time down to 1 second, okay? And what I want is rotation across the Z-axis. So this new track, 0, let's right click and rename it and call it rotation Z. There we go. Okay, same thing that we did before. I want 2 nodes, or 2 keys. The first key is 0, 0, and the second key is 190. So 0, 0 is 0 seconds, 0 degrees. 1 second, 90 degrees. We're going to make the door swing open. Okay? So let's add those 2 keys. So first key is 0, 0. And the next key is 190. And again, if you can't see them, you can always use these little buttons here so you can see that this is just a linear curve again, just like we've seen before. All right. So now that we have this timeline, by the way, I don't want it to loop. If you make it loop, it's going to go like this. Open, and then it's going to go open, open, open. It's not going to close. It's just going to keep on opening every single time. It'll snap back and then open, right? So I don't want that to happen. I just want it to do it once. So please do not check loop for this one. Okay? Once you're done with the timeline, you should be here. Okay? So just like we've done before, I want to set actor rotation. All right, so again, I want to set actor rotation. Here's my set actor rotation. And remember, we have to split the struct pin because we want the Z rotation only. That's what we want to connect. We also want to add the execution pins in here. But I want to add a new funny node that I didn't have before. It's got a funny name. It's called flip-flop. Let's look for it, right? So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to look for flip-flop. So flip-flop. Let me explain the flip-flop node. It's kind of interesting. So when you first go to the flip-flop node, it's going to do the first action, action A. And then when you go to it again, it's going to hit the second action, action B. I want you to take action B and go to reverse. So this is what it should look like. So let me explain. So when you first press the E button, this is what's going to happen. It's going to call the interact event on the door. That's what it's going to do eventually. It's going to swing the door from 0 degrees to 90 degrees in 1 second. And then when you click the E button again, it's going to go from 90 degrees to 0 degrees. That's the reverse. Right? So instead of making 2 different timelines, 0 to 90 and then 90 to 0, I can just use 1 timeline. It's a way of reusing some of our code. Okay, compile and save. So now we have a nice little interact event, and this is the event that I want to make work now with the door. Are you with me? If you aren't, I can pause for a second.
Right here. Open door to set after rotation, set to new rotation.
No. Not first that rotation. No, set active rotation. That's correct. I'm not changing the location of the door. I'm just rotating the door across. It's
I'm
yeah.
gonna get that connected.
Oh, you have to split the struct pin. Remember? So if you right click on the rotation and you split the struct pin, then that'll allow you to do that. Remember yeah. No, not there.
On this one?
Yeah. Right click, split struct. And then right? Yeah. Split struct. So remember that the rotator is a quaternion. It's not a float. It's made up of 3 floats. yaw, pitch and roll, right? And what we're doing is we're just showing all the components of my quaternion, right? Just like if I wanted to have a vector and I split the struct pin, I'm going to see all the components of my vector, x, y, and z. Otherwise, it's a vector. Okay? So is everyone with me like this? Are we good? Can I move on? All right, so now that we have this part, right, the next part is, and we did all this, the next part is I want to start programming actions. Let's do this. I want you to go back into that third person input actions folder, and I want to add a new input action. So what I mean is, let's go to my third person folder, input, actions. Notice I have 3 actions, IA jump, IA look, and IA move. Let's add another action. And the way to do this is right click. I'm going to go down to input, and I'm going to choose input action right here. So again, I'm inside the actions folder, and I'm going to choose a new input action. Let's do that. Let's call this action IA for input action underscore interact. IA interact. Again, I did this inside the folder. Let's do it together. Go to the folder. You're going to miss this. What's wrong with this? Oh, this one goes to play, A goes to play, and B goes to reverse. Can you set up your timeline properly? Okay. So the timeline, again, if I was going to show it to you, if you're a bit behind, it's okay. It looks like this, right? So the timeline has 2 nodes, 2 keys. One of them is 0, 0. The other one is at 1, 9. And the whole time is about, so 1 second. So add 2 keys, add a key, and then put 0, 0. Yeah, and then add another key. Try again. Oh, because you probably have the key already. Scroll, I bet you do. Because it's probably far up, so choose that one. Just choose that one. Yeah, you already have a key way over here. So get rid of that one. And then I'll go back to that one. And then put 0, 0 there. Okay, you could have done that too. Right click and add a new one.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Right click, add a new one. Put 0, 0. Right click, now add another one. Right click, now another one. And go to 1, 9, 9. Yeah. Because it's way past this. So you can go with these, this, and you go. All this does is scale. So you can just tell them this is space remove the automatic word. All right, so now let's right click, or you call it rotation, but let's get it. And then compile and save. And right click, delete. And so compile and save. Okay, now I can't compile. Let's go back to your event graph and see why.
Sorry, what did I have?
The event graph. Click on the event graph tab.
But what did you just say?
It can't compile because you're trying to do this. So because you have this extra track, let's press Alt left click. There we go. Now connect this rotation Z to the new rotation. Let's just drag this in. There. Yeah. Do not compile. That's it. Now it's good.
Awesome.
The collision for the door, I missed that part. How do I turn the door collision on so I don't walk through it?
So you go to SM underscore door. So if you click on the door mesh, right, and then if you scroll up and all the way to the corner, and if you go into this little button right there where it says browse, click that. And if I double click on the door, there we go. And if I go to collision and add a convex collision and click on apply, then it adds a collision now. There we go. Save it. All right. Hopefully everyone now is with me. We can move on. Yes, everyone? Good. So now that we've done this and we've added an action, let me take a look at what that action looks like. Please open up this action with me. I want to see what it looks like. So if I double click on the IA interact action, you can see that the value type is a bool, on or off. But there's other value types you could have chosen, like a 1D float. You could have chosen a 2D vector or an axis 3D, which is a vector, all right? Typically when we're doing like a gamepad, we use axis 2D, right? Because it has kind of forward and back, left and right. If I only want to have one axis, like just left and right, I could just have an axis 1D. So these are the options you can choose depending on the input you want. Okay. So what you want is you want to go here inside of the third person input actions folder, and I want you to right click and I want you to go to input action. All right, that's what I want you to do. So going to the third person, so scroll down, input actions, and then I'll right click here, and I want to go to input, and I want to go to input action, and our name is IA_interact. So this is creating an action for us. Okay, so now that we have, has everyone got an action? Yes? Now that we have an action, we have to map this action to a key. So this is kind of the way this works in Unreal Engine. Every engine deals with this differently, inputs, all right? So when we map it to a key, we need to do this through an input mapping context. It's another asset, okay? We have this asset in the input folder. It's right here. It's already been created for us, right? So it's called IMC default, all right? Again, it's in the input folder, not the actions folder. So here it is. If I double click onto this, it's going to show me these mappings if I expand them. IA jump, IA move, IA look, right? We want to add another mapping. So I want you to click this little button again, this button right here. If I add a mapping, and if you open this up, you can choose the new input action we just made, IA interact. If I do, you can choose the type of action. I can choose a keypad action. I can choose a keyboard action. I can choose a touch action. I can choose any action I want. But what I want to choose is a keyboard action. And if I go to the keyboard, all the keys are listed on the keyboard. But a quick way of doing that is click on the little keyboard here and press the key you want, which is E. Okay?
E?
Yes, the E key.
Mine's a mouse.
Because you can do mouse actions. You can do all kinds of actions. If you click on it, you can always reset it, by the way.
Yeah, it's just.
So if you click onto that little, click on there again and press the E key. There we go. Okay. So this basically tells our, this is telling our, our aligning our input action with the key. It's binding. This is key binding, right? Where the E key means it's going to activate this event. This new event we've just created, all right? Once we make an action, it becomes an event in our character, okay? Now that we have an event and we've mapped it, right? What we want to do is we want to go back to the third person character blueprint. So this is the one that they made, not us. So again, to get there, you're going to go to third person, you're going to go to blueprints, and you're going to open up the BP_third person character blueprint if it's not already open. This one, the big one, the character, right? I want you to go down like below. So this is what if you scroll out, this is what the current nodes look like, right? I want you to put it at the bottom, okay? And here's what you're going to type. Ready? IA interact, type it. You'll see that IA interact, IA_interact is now a new custom event that you've made. This is what you made when you made the input action, okay? And if you expand it, you have some options for execution pins. Triggered means always happening if I hold it down. Started means only once. Completed means when I let go. Key down, key up. That's what it means, right? I don't care about completed, I do care about started, and this is where I want this action to take place. IA interact. What I also want is also to keep track of the door, right? So I want to create a reference to keep track of my door itself, right? So let's add a new variable on the left inside of my character. This is our own variable. Make a new variable, and I want to call it door. But the type is not Boolean. The type is, this is a more difficult concept for you guys, because if you've never done object-oriented programming before, you're going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? Okay? Bear with me. Just do what I'm telling you to do. All right? What we were looking for is a reference for the instance that's in the world. Okay? That's what we're looking for. I want to almost like point to that door and say, it's a door type. That's what it is. Right? Because whenever we make a blueprint, we're actually making our own custom type, like a Boolean or an integer or a float. We've made our own custom type, which is a door. We've defined what a door means in the game. Right? So what I want to do now is I want to make it so that this door variable is of type BP underscore door object reference. The way to do that is this. Pull this down and start typing BP underscore door. You're going to see that it comes up. Okay, that's the type. Wallace, I'm going to probably need your help for this one, right? BP underscore door object reference. Okay, that's what I want. Okay, so again, I'm making a variable of type BP underscore door object reference. Okay? And it's going to look like this. So again, you made a new variable, and then you're going to go up to the top here and search for BP underscore door, and then you're going to choose object reference. Object reference. So why we're going to do this is because I want to keep in memory which door I'm accessing. Because I could have multiple doors in the level, right? And I want to point to the specific door that I want.
By the way, all of these steps are faces slides.
No. So get rid of that. So just type in
Like this whole thing, what we do now,
underscore.
it's hard to explain.
It's
So
right. There it is.
I exist in the game world, the clock exists in the game world. I need to figure out what the clock exists in the game world. Like, I know it now exists. I set up that connection. That's the whole point of doing this. Is so that me, as a first person character, I can approach this door, and if I do something with it, it'll open. Right? But it won't do
Are you good? Is that a hand?
Yeah.
So get rid of that word. And then right click.
Yeah, so that's the brilliant thing about blueprints is you work on one object, get that one object working exactly as you want, and now you choose the other one.
That's where we're at right now. Yeah. And I've also added in a new variable called door of type BP underscore door. Okay.
One enemy that behaves in a particular way that you want,
Yeah.
and you duplicate it, now you have three of them doing the same thing.
All right. So now that we have the door reference, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. This is the next part. Okay. And like I said, this is programming, my friends. So we're going to take this slow, one step at a time. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to take this door. When I want to use a variable, there's two ways I can use the variable. I can use a getter or I can use a setter. Okay? The getter gets me a reference to the variable. Setting sets the variable to some value, right? So I can do those two actions. So here's the way you do this. If I drag and drop my variable door into my level now, take a look, it gives me this option. Do I want to get the door or do I want to set the door? What do I want to do? So when I say set the door, it means I want to set that reference. I want to point to the door in the level. I can't do that right now because I don't know what door is that I'm pointing to, right? We're going to get that information. But I want to get the door. Imagine if we already have the reference. That's what I want you to think about in your head. I already have this reference somehow, okay? So I want to get the door, get it. So use get door. By the way, the quick shortcut for this is when you're drag and dropping, you control drag. Let me show you. So if I was to try to do this again, if I just control drag from here, it's a getter. If I alt drag from here, it's a setter. They look different, okay? This is the set and this is the get. So the get, what it does is it gets the reference. We don't have a reference yet, you're going to say. We never did anything. How does it know where to go? It doesn't. Bear with me, okay? So I want to get this thing, but it would be really nice for me to test to see if this is valid. For example, what if I don't have a reference? And here's why I wouldn't have a reference. Let's look at this door that we have right here. Okay, imagine, just watch me for a second, okay? I'm going to go up to the door, right? If it's close enough, if it's close enough, if I'm here, I know you're right, I can open the door, right? But if I'm over here, The door's too far away. I can't open it. I can't reach it, right? Here, I have no reference to a door. But when I come closer and I'm here, remember there's this invisible box that's interacting with me? Here, I can get a reference. So sometimes, if I test to see if I have a reference, it's not pointing to anything. I don't have any value. I can't get to the door. We have to test to see if this door is valid. There's 3 ways to test for this to see if it's valid. And for those people who know how to program, it's called, we have to test to see if it's null, right? If it's void, if it's not if it's nothing, right? And the way to do it, there's 3 ways. Just watch me for a second. Here's the first way. I can say is valid. Don't do this. Is valid, which is a node that basically tests to see if it's valid. And then what you have to do is you have to branch. There's an actual branch node. This is kind of like an if statement in programming. This is one way, okay? Here's the next way. If I just say is valid, and it's an actual function that gives me is valid or not. That's another way. That's actually a little better. But there's a third way, which is even better than these, which is if I right-click on the actual getter and I choose convert to validated get. This one. So it looks like a getter, but now it looks like this. This is the one I want to use. Okay? What this does is doing this. I don't just want to get a reference. I want to test to see that it's valid, that it has something in there, that it's pointing to something. Because if it's not pointing to something, my code is going to break. Because I'm trying to do something with a door that I don't have. So first I test, does it exist? Do I have a door? Yes or no? Am I close enough? If I'm close enough, then I can do something with it. And that's what we're doing here. Okay? And I want to put this inside of the started execution pin. This is my first part. So when I press the E button, it's going to test to see that if I have a door or not. If I do have a door, if it's valid, then I'm going to do something. If it's not valid, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to not do something at all. Okay? The next part is I want to use the door because I know doors, remember doors have this variable called interactor is close enough. Remember this, right? I want to see if my interactor is close enough from the door that I'm accessing. So let's pull that out. I'm going to say is interactor, or interactor is close enough, I think is what I called it. Interactor is close enough. So you'll see something that looks like this. Okay? So basically what I'm saying is, okay, now that I have a door, can you test, hey door, can you tell me if there's something that's close enough to you to interact with? I'm testing to see if a character is close enough. If it's not close enough, then you shouldn't be able to open the door, right? So that's a test. Now, when we're testing, we need to use a branch. So we can use a branch node. A branch node either is true or false. It's an if statement, okay? So if it's true, if my door is valid and if it's close enough, those are 2 ifs. If my door is valid, if I have a proper door and it's close enough, then interact, right? Which means I'm going to use the door and I'm going to call its interact custom event, right? Because the interact event belongs to the door itself. It exists. We just made it here, okay? Because we made this event, it's available whenever we access the door. The door itself has its own functionality called interact that we created, right? So here, we're just going to drag this from here and we're going to say, well, first of all, I want to get another door reference. Here it is. And I don't have to make it if it's valid. We know if it's valid because we're already at this point. Here we tested if it's valid. Here we don't need to test, right? And we're going to say door interact. Here it is. Door interact. All right, so that is the whole first part of the blueprint. Now, I got to be honest with you. I gotta confess something to you. This is bad. I know this looks like, wait, this is pretty cool. It's bad. It's really bad. Okay. You don't know it's bad right now. It's a naive way of doing it, and it's a naive way because what if I want to interact with multiple items. I want to interact with a door, a key, a sword, whatever. I want to be able to press the same key or talk to somebody. So I would have to create like whole new structures for everybody and randomly pick which one. Is it this one? Well, if it's this one, then do this. And if it's that one, then do this. I don't want to be doing that. That is a terrible way of working. There's a whole other way of doing it, and I've detailed it in my PowerPoint slide deck, which I'm going to give to you. An advanced way of doing it using enumerations, interfaces, and inheritance, right? So if you want to test yourself after this class, you can take it further, right? I've given almost an advanced section. If we have time, I'll do it with you. I doubt it. But I put it there just in case, because we're running out of time. All right, great. So this is the first part. Now we can make this tighter. We can kind of pull this a little bit closer, like this. And the next part. What I want is, I want to be able to interact with my capsule. So the character itself, if you actually look at the viewport of the character, here's the character, and the character has a capsule that goes around it. This one, the capsule component. I want to use the capsule component to overlap with my door's kind of interaction box, if you will. Okay, that's what I want to do, right? And the way I can do this is I can check to see if the component is overlapping. There's actually a special event for this called onComponentBeginOverlap. I know it's a long name, but that's what it is, all right? The way to get to that, easy, is if I go back to the event graph and I click on the capsule component of the character, and if I scroll all the way down, there are a bunch of common events. And one of them is onComponentBeginOverlap. If you just click the plus here, right, then it'll give you the event. Or you can type it out, onComponentBeginOverlap, while you're clicking the capsule component. All right? So the capsule component basically says there's a bunch of inputs that the overlap event triggers. One of them is this other actor, right? So the other actor, right, we want to test to see if it's a door, because I can overlap with everything. Remember, the capsule is a capsule. It goes around the entire character. It can overlap with the floor, a wall, whatever. I don't care about the floor and the wall. All I care about is a door. So I want to check to see if it's the door that I'm overlapping with. And to do that, we're going to use a special node called casting. So we're going to say, I'm going to kind of drag this out and say cast to BP underscore door. Cast to BP underscore door. So when I use this special cast node, I'm waiting for you guys to do this. Hopefully you guys are all with me, right? When I use a special cast node, it does this. It basically tests, all right? It says, does the cast pass? If the cast pass, that means it is a door, then we want to do this. If it fails, then we want to do this. For example, I could say, if it's failing, what am I colliding with? Is it a door? Is it the floor? Is it what am I colliding with? But I'm going to assume that it passes, okay, for a second. If it passes, we want to set the door. Remember that setter? We want to set the door to this. So here's how you do this. You take the setter, the door variable, and you alt drag on top of this output pin, like this. Alt drag on top of the output pin. And when you do, it makes that connection. It looks like this. Okay, how does this work? That means if the door is here, right, and I'm interacting with it, I'm overlapping with the door, I try and see if this is a door. Is it a door? Cool, save that reference. That's what this is doing. It's saving a reference and storing it inside that variable called door, okay? That's what it is. And because we're able to do that, we know that I'm close enough. We know there's only one way I can get an interactor is within radius, right? Or if I'm close enough, because I'm already overlapping, right? So we can actually say that the door is close enough. So we can say, kind of drag from here and we can say that set interactor is close enough. Set interactor is close enough, and we can check the box. Why do I want to do that? Because we test for it up here, right? We're saying, hey, get a valid door. Is it valid? Cool. Am I close enough? Yes. Well then, open the door. That's the interact part, right? This part, this overlap, what it does is it sets the door and sets it up so that we're close enough. There's one more event we need and then we're done. We're done for the day in terms of interactions. We need it when the player is too far from the door. We want to lose the reference. We want to wipe it out because they shouldn't be able to press the E key and open the door from far away, right? So when they leave the door frame, we're going to disconnect the door. That's how we're going to do it. Ready? So just like we have an on component begin overlap for the capsule, we also have an on component end overlap. Here it is, on component end overlap. So there's two events that we're connecting to the capsule. The only way you can do this is if the capsule component is selected. If it's not selected, then you won't get the proper overlap event because you can make overlap events for everything, okay? So here's the opposite now. We're gonna we're gonna do the same thing up to here. So we're gonna say other actor cast to BP underscore door. So we're leaving the door. That's what this is saying. I'm leaving a door. When I'm leaving a door, what do I want to do? I want to set this door to nothing. So I want to leave it empty, not connected. When I leave it not connected, it means get rid of the reference. That's what it means, okay? And that means because it doesn't have a reference, when I try to interact with it, it will fail, it will not be valid, and so I will skip this whole part because it's going to check to see if the door is valid, and if it's not, it's going to skip. Finally, what we want to do is we want to set this interactor as close enough to unchecked, and the way to do that is we're going to pull from here is we're going to say interactor is close enough, and we're going to set it unchecked like this. And those are the two events. Please make sure yours looks like mine. Yes. So you're going to pull from that output pin? No, not that one, the other one, the blue one. And you're going to say set interactor. There it is.
Okay.
And then you're going to connect the execution pins. There we go. Check the box. Yeah. But with the different, slightly different, take a look at that.
Mine did not close out.
It didn't close, but it opens.
Yeah.
Yours doesn't close?
No, but I still have that random thing blocking me from going through.
That's weird. We're going to fix that, right? So again, the way it should work now, if you test it, it looks like this. So here's my character, and if I walk over to the door, and if I press E, it opens. I can walk through it. And if I look at it, because it has to be kind of close to look at it, and I press E again, then it closes. Right? By the way, you can make your interactor available to see. Right now, it's invisible. When we play the game, I'm going to go back to that code in a second, guys. Give me 1 second. I know people need to see that again. But notice that this is only available here in the editor, but not in the game. We don't want to see it in the game. You don't want your players to see the weird shape, right?
How do you see it in the editor? I don't see mine.
You don't see this in the editor? That's a problem. Otherwise, then that means that your interactor is somewhere else. Like your interaction box is not here. It should be right next to the door, just like this.
The door's actually working. I just moved the door over.
Oh, okay.
Something that's in one level that's blocking it.
Weird. Yeah, it's weird. But you can turn it on. The way you can see this is if you go to show, and if you want to, you can actually show collision. If you go show collisions, you can actually show all your collisions in the entire level if you want to, right? So then you'll see that there's something there.
There's a character thing there.
Well, something's there, right?
Yeah.
So you can turn collisions on and off if you want to, but that's how you see it. All right. So watch me again. This is what I do. So I can go here. I can go to the door. I can open it, and I can walk through. And if I go back, I have to kind of look at the door to close it because the door also rotated. Right, there we go. And I can kind of open the door, right, and close the door as long as I'm looking at it. Okay. Now there are some issues with this whole thing. There's some problems, but we've made it so that we have an interaction for the door to open and close. Okay? And it's using that toggle, that flip-flop, right? Which is the first time we go, it does 0 to 90, and the second time we go, it goes 90 to 0, right? Here's how it looks again. Make sure you have this. Check your code so it looks like my code. you want to see, for debugging purposes, and you need to do this in class sometimes, if you want to see things that are invisible, right? There's a way to do this. Here's how I can show you this. If you go to the door, and if you want to see your interactor box, this box right here, if you want to see it, if I click onto the interact box, and if you go to the search field here and you type in hidden, you can see that from a rendering perspective, it's hidden in the level. See how it says hidden in level in the game? Hidden in game. If you uncheck this, it'll be shown in the game, right? So that means I'm clicking on the interact box and I'm just filtering for hidden. That's all I'm doing here. And I can choose it on or off, right? So I'm choosing it so that it's not hidden in the game. You can also change the color and all that stuff too. So for example, I can go to advanced here for my shape color under box extent, and let's change the color so that the color is like blue. You can change that too. This is just debugging, right? I can also change the line thickness so that I can make the line thickness like 2. So if you look at it in the viewport now, it looks like this, like a big thick line, all right? Again, how did I get there? I went to change the shape color, it's inside of shape. While I'm clicking on interact box, you can change the shape color to whatever color you want. I've just chosen a blue color, right? And I've changed the line thickness to 2. Again, this is all debugging. You don't have to do this in real games. But we want to do is we can see that where the interact box is and what happens to it. Let's see what happens when I compile and save and play now. Notice that in the game, you have this blue box now, right, in the editor. But if I press play, it should also appear. What this is good for is testing. Does my character intersect with this box? Take a look. It's not bad, right? I could probably even make it even bigger if I wanted to. See how it's not, because see how she's colliding with the door and she's kind of half in and half out of the box? This could cause weird side effects because if I'm kind of half in and half out, then sometimes my E key will work and sometimes it won't. So I could make the box bigger, right? Because I want to be able to interact with the box a little bit easier, okay? But now if I press the E key, you can clearly see what happens. The whole box also changes, rotates. Take a look at that. Because why? I'm rotating the entire object. I'm not rotating the mesh. If I want to rotate just the mesh, I would use a different node. Let me explain. Back in the door, what we did was in the event graph, we said set actor rotation. This is not what we want, right? If I want to rotate the mesh, I can do a different kind of rotation, right? For example, I can pull in the mesh. I can drag a mesh value in, and I can set rotation. And this is set, if I type in set local world offset, I can do that like you said, or I can set world rotation, and you can see that I can set the rotation. I'm just showing you, I'm not going to do it here, but I can set the rotation for the door, but not the whole actor. Only the door can rotate, the door mesh. Whereas my other thing, that interact box can stay the same. Let me show you this. I'm just gonna point it to the other thing. So I'm just gonna split the struct pin here. I'll keep this node, and I'm just gonna disconnect it to show you the difference, right, from a learning perspective. And I'm just gonna pull this aside here, so we have it. It's not gonna, so I can show you the difference between the two, right? And here is the difference. Here I'm rotating the mesh of the door, the actual door itself, not the interactor. So if I compile and save and play now, let's take a look, same thing. If I go here now, I rotate the door, but the interactor stays the same. This might be a bit better for us, right? Take a look. See, the interactor doesn't change, but the door changes. So if I come back to this now, there's a problem. I have to come this close for me to close the door, right? I can't look at the door anymore, right? This harkens back to what I said before. I can't do it here. I'm not close enough, but here I am close enough. And it's going to hit me on the back. So lots of really great ways to do things, and you can do things differently, right? Two different ways of doing it. One with the whole actor, one with just the mesh. okay? I can undo those changes, just like before. If I just keep on doing, then I will undo everything back to where I was. My friends, that's all we have time for today. I wish I had more time for you, right? There's a ton of things. I want you to take it like this. Unreal Engine has millions of lines of code. Millions and millions. There are so many nodes and so much functionality built in out of the box that you can access. It's crazy. There's no way in one session, by the way, we've already gone way beyond what I would have done with students, because there's no way, some of you might have checked out, because you're understanding wise, I went beyond maybe some things that you didn't understand. Well, imagine a student, right? Especially if you've never programmed before. I would have to step through this many weeks before I got to this point, because then some lights would turn on. Some students are really quick. They pick it up right away. Other people are going to be struggling for a while and not getting it and not enjoying themselves because they're I don't get what he's saying. What does this mean? There's theory involved. There's stuff that we've skipped over to get here. But I've given you the basics of what Unreal Engine can do. By the way, what it should do for you is this. If you go do videos, and I want to talk about this as the last part of what we're doing today. If you look at some, I put the advanced key stuff in here too, by the way, in the PowerPoint. So what we can do is we can go to Fab, get a key, and then we can create a key. This is what you could do. And then you can see that the code is much more complex for the key, because now we're going to actually do, the key is going to bounce and it's going to rotate. We've already done that part, right? So this is just repeating what we've already done. And then the key, well, the character now is going to have more things to think about. I need a key and a door, and I need to have the key ready before I open the door, because if the key doesn't exist, then the door can't be open, right? That's the system, that we can create. So that's a mechanic, if you will, for the game, right? Opening a door is an interaction. Having a key to open the door, that's a system that we're creating, a key system, right? And you can see that the blueprint is way more complex. But my friends, I even say it here, this is actually quite messy and wrong. Because this would be the first level. If I was going to teach students, I would say, well, this is really bad. How can we improve this? We can use inheritance. And, and once we start, kind of going over it, these are the steps that you have to use for inheritance and interfaces. By the way, when I give you the PowerPoint, I challenge you guys, explore how these things work. If you actually look now, you should have a good understanding basis of what to look for on YouTube to help you, right? Because those are part of your next steps, and it should look beautiful like this at the end, right? Where we're creating a interfaces, right? And we're using enums. Enumerations are almost like a nice way of identifying different interactables. I can have 5 different interactables: a key, a door, a sword, whatever, and I should be able to use the E key for all of them, right? How do I do that? I have to encode this, right? And you can do that with enums. So I put it all in here for you to check out. This is how it would look at the end, and this is the beautiful way it should look to interact with any item. Okay? Let's do some wrap up. So again, think about this. Could you fit something like this in with your curriculum, right? Even part of it. Could you do it over several sessions? I would do it over several sessions. I wouldn't do it in one session, right? Break it out into a bunch of little lessons, instead of one big lesson like this one, right? Guys, we can always do more of these, right? And we can even do them, if you really want to, remote, if it suits you, right? If you have a computer at home, Wallace and I can set it up so we can do more PD sessions other times, all right? You don't have to physically do it here. Physically doing it here, we have the devices. You don't have to have a device. You probably, again, $3,000 to $5,000 to run this proper stuff at home, right? So if you don't have it, we're here for you. You can come back again, right? So think about what you could do. These are some questions for you to think about. There's also some great resources that I've included in the PowerPoint document I'm going to send you, which is the Epic Games, Unreal Engine documentation. There's tons of great documentation. That's one thing I love about Unreal Engine, is it has this amazing documentation. So if I actually go there, you can see that Unreal Engine 5.5 docs are detailed, right? And they have a walkthrough for how do you work with content, how do you build virtual worlds. There's a bunch of videos that are connected to this stuff. There's tons of learning you can do just by looking at the documentation. But you have to devote yourself. You know what I like to say to my students and to people who play games and whatever? You got to put your reps in, right? If you don't put your reps in, you're not going to get this stuff. There's no way that in one PD session that you're going to remember all these little things that I just told you about, even if you watch the video, right? You need to do it, which means you need to devote part of your time to doing this kind of stuff. So this is one part. The other part is the developer portal itself. The developer portal, it gives you a bunch of other stuff to explore, which is really cool. Because Unreal Engine is only one component, one application. There's also Twin Motion and Reality Scan. If you're interested in doing things like photogrammetry, where you take a bunch of pictures of an object and scan it in and create a three-dimensional object, Reality Scan can help you with that, right? So if you're someone who likes to do 3D printing and that kind of stuff, Reality Scan allows you to scan something and put together a mesh from images, right? Which is pretty cool. So there's other things that they've given you here. And there's a bunch of development documentation here, detailing all kinds of stuff. Really, really deep. The other thing is the Unreal Online Learning, which has a bunch of free videos and short little courses that you can also do slowly, like actually explore some of these things and doing them one step at a time. Some really great little introductory tutorials and that kind of stuff right from the people from Epic. All right, so you can't go wrong there. And of course, assets we talked about, which is Fab. So you can go to fab.com even if you're not in Unreal Engine. Assets are good for Unity, Unreal, or you can use them for yourself if you have your own game engine that you want to use. They're available for you to use no matter what. Some free assets, some assets that are paid. Most of them are paid. And then finally, there are community forums and the best YouTube tutorials. There are tons of YouTube tutorials to do whatever you want to do. If you can imagine something, most likely there's a YouTube tutorial for it. No problem, right? So if you wanted to make another door system, I want to open a door with YouTube. I bet you any money if you go there, you'll search for it and you'll see a tutorial just like that, right? Doing it different than I did, by the way. Because again, like I said, there's tons of different ways to do the same thing. And so now we come to our close. One thing I want to kind of leave you with is, like it says here, Unreal is not just about games. It's about what Wallace said. Wallace, if you want to come up as well, so for some final words. He talked about, serious games. And I think Unreal allows you to do other things like cinematics, other demonstrations and those kind of things. But bringing in assets from Blender or 3ds Max or whatever to create some kind of experiential learning for your students and for yourself, right? So it's a lot to explore, and hopefully this is kind of your first step into that world. Yeah.
Now, do you guys do anything with like film here and Unreal? Like sort of live, like compositing?
We don't, but we do have our digital content creation
Video motion graphics.
folks, yeah, and our video motion graphics program that does that. They may not use Unreal, but
Same building or different one?
for now it's the same building, I believe.
We're all going to be downtown.
Yeah, eventually.
We're all going to be downtown in fall.
Yeah.
But they do very, very minor things with it, right? They focus not on the Unreal part, that's us.
Yeah.
So
But there will probably be a crossover at some point, I'm sure.
likely,
Yeah.
school loves those stuff.
Learn it.
Yeah. Questions, guys?
I was interested about that too, the video component.
Yeah. Again, like if you have a basic understanding of Unreal, and hopefully what Thomas told you here guide with that, you can start like traveling in that direction. There's a lot of things you can do, and you can see how complicated this is. This is again, I had the conversation with you folks, like, parents are like, oh yeah, my little Timmy loves playing video games downstairs, so I'm sure they'll be great at making it. Well,
Yeah.
you guys have just experienced how hard it is to make a door open.
Yeah, it can take time. I mean, again, if you think about it, whether you use this or Blender, like let's say for example, and this will be something that's in the video, but I don't expect you guys to do. So let's keep talking while I do this. Let's suppose that you want to bring an item from Blender. One last thing, because I know you guys want to try and bring in stuff from Blender into this. I want to show you that before we go. So sorry, I got to add that in. I think it's been removed for whatever reason. Let's do this.
Do Suzanne.
What was that, Suzanne? Well, I was actually going to do my silly demonstration thing that I normally do.
Oh,
right?
they're just gonna bring in Suzanne and Monkey.
Yeah. So let's suppose in Blender you have you want to set up a this is the Blender 2.7 right. Continue. Let's say in Blender as an example. This is why I think what I was saying to Jenny is like we have a Blender session one day as well as one of these, I want to add in, let's suppose, a plane, right? And I want to scale it, let's suppose, to something like this big. And this is what I normally do with this kind of stuff. Let's say 5. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to subdivide this plane into a bunch of parts. Let's subdivide it like this. All right, so you have a bunch of divisions. Oops. You have a bunch of divisions here. So there's your plane. Now think about what this looks like. It looks like a grid, right? So imagine if now I want to select some faces here, and I want to quickly create a little tile that I can kind of walk through. All right, so let's just use circle select mode to do that. So let's do one of these, and let's just do something that looks like this. All right, so there's my tile. Yay! And I want to extrude it across the z-axis some amount, let's say 1 unit. Move it across the z-axis, like I said, by 1 unit. There we go. And then do it again across the z-axis by 1 unit. There we go. So I have this. Here's my object, right? And I want to bring this into Unreal Engine. So notice it's like a little level, right? And I can add as many of these tiles as possible. I can even randomize them using procedural content generation, where I can randomize a whole maze using this stuff in very, very quickly, right? I want to bring this into Unreal Engine. I'm going to save this as, let's actually not save it. Let's just file, export as an FBX, let's say. There we go. And let's export this. Actually, you know what? We'll export it as a, file, export as, we'll export it as a GLTF. GLTF gives you the file, the FBX, plus the material and the textures. It's far better. All right, so I export it as a GLTF, and I go to downloads, and let's make this, we'll call it tile.glb. There we go. So now that I have this, right, then what I can do is I can bring in that object right into our Unreal Engine, and I'll just call this thing meshes, make a new folder, and I'll share this with you so you have this. So here's a new folder called meshes, or models. Let's call it models. And then what I can do is I can go into my downloads folder here, just to show you, and grab this tile GLB and drag it in. It's a drag and drop process, my friends. It really is. And once I've done this, you'll drag in everything. Now I might drag in the lights and all that stuff too. Let's see what happens. There it is. There's my scene, right? And now the model, again, it's a static mesh, so let's rename it from tile. We want to name it to our naming convention, so it's SM_tile. That's what we want to call it. And if I double click onto it, it'll bring me into this mode, so you can actually see what it looks like. There it is, okay? So that's how fast it is. Blender to Unreal. It's literally a drag and drop process. It's made for this kind of stuff, which is really, really powerful. But we have no collision detection. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the collision. And instead, what I want to do is, in the collision area, I want to add in my own collision. So really quickly. And again, this is recorded so you can see it. So I want to use complex collision as simple. And once I do that, and I click, I have this in there. And if I look at my collision now, show simple collision, you can see that this is what it looks like. So basically what I've done is I've used my collision, my geometry, as the collision shape itself. So instead of it being like, otherwise you won't be able to walk through it. Let's drag it in, right?
Now, why did you do this way versus what you showed previously with the auto convex? Is it to save resources?
Auto convex, because it was a door, it was really simple. But if I'm doing something like this, auto convex won't work. It'll be like, you won't be able to walk through it. It'll try to draw weird lines, and it's not as accurate. So then, let's say I want to put it here, right? And let's just kind of populate it next to the other one, and then I'll save everything. So here you go. Here's the level. Look, and let's just make it a little bit higher so there's no Z fighting, and we're good to go. And if I was to play this, you can see now that in that little time frame, I've made a walkable area where it's kind of, you can go through, right? Really nice and simple, right? So you can do this kind of stuff with Blender, and that was like a 2-second job. Like, you can see that the stuff is skewed and there's things that need to be changed. UV maps need to be fixed. But at the end of the day, with a little bit more time and with some code, I can auto-generate let's say 16 tiles of different configurations so that they spawn randomly and create a random map for your players, right? Which is really cool. Okay? So there's lots of stuff we can do here. Think about how you can do this kind of stuff with yourself. And again, we can do more sessions like this for you guys if you want. Questions before we go for the day?
Do you have any more tutorials you could share with us?
Me? Yeah, tons. Thousands of videos.
Search up his
Thousands
name
of
on
videos.
YouTube, you'll find out.
Thousands of videos.
Search up
Thousands.
his name on
The
YouTube.
screenshots are perfect. Like, those are amazing. Like, that's the way I find kids work from.
And I'm gonna give you this PowerPoint. So you're gonna have all these screenshots, for you. Because like I said, that's how I teach too. When I release the PowerPoint ahead of time. And if you guys are part of our, maybe what I could have done is share the PowerPoint with you ahead of time. But you can have this so when you look at the video again, or if you want to try it again, just follow the PowerPoint document, most of it, or look at the video, step through it, and then you can get it done. Even if I've lost you, right? Okay?
Thank you both for having us today.
No problem.
It was very